The History Hound Dog presents 9 Hours Before Death. Created by Subversive Productions. Photo provided by Ernestine Glessner. Narrated by Bankston Brand. Hello, I'm your host Bankston Brand. A photo of Abraham Lincoln, as he lay dying in a small back room at the Petersons boarding house. The photo was taken about 15 to 25 minutes after he was shot. Some say this photo couldn't have been taken. But it was, and the evidence proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is in fact Abraham Lincoln, dying at the Petersons. So please stay with us as we present the evidence we've uncovered. The night Lincoln was shot, there were two brothers staying at the boarding house. Henry Elk and his brother Julius. Both men were experienced photographers. As the president was taken into the boarding house, Julius Elk was scrambling to get his photographic equipment. The glass plate negative that was used was most likely already prepared much earlier and on standby in case there was something interesting to photograph. Then a once-in-a-lifetime shot came Julius's way, irresistible to a photographer. I seriously doubt Julius knew if the photo would be visible or a complete mess. But Julius couldn't pass this chance up regardless of the outcome. Immediately after the photo was taken, Julius did something extraordinarily unusual. He rushed up the stairs to his room. Instead of making a tintype photo, he exposed the photo onto a piece of leather. It is not known what prompted Julius to do so. Maybe someone told him his room could be searched, and the negative glass plate could be confiscated. Or maybe his brother Henry went upstairs and warned Julius that the United States Secretary of War, Edwin M. Stanton, was getting ready to have the room searched. Regardless of how it happened, Julius was trying to hide this print. And this is the reason it was placed onto the leather to start with. One could only imagine Stanton walking into the room with Mary Lincoln wailing out and then seeing the camera set up at the foot of the bed, and then being told about the photo. He was so outraged he even ordered Mary Lincoln to be removed from the room. It is very plausible that, at this moment he gave the orders, that no photos were to be taken of Lincoln. Something prompted Stanton to give these orders, and more than likely this was it. Only the men present know what Stanton said that night, as he entered the room, but whatever it was severely threatening, because the photos were never mentioned, and that moment in time was completely erased from history. The words that Stanton spoke were such a threat, it instilled fear into Julius, so much so that even the deathbed photos were never released to the public eye. Only hand-drawn pictures were circulated. This would lead one to believe that all of them were taken without authorization. If the photos would have been released, it would have generated a small fortune. They were found by Julius's family almost 100 years later, and then they were released, but they did not recognize the one of Lincoln, and it eventually ended up at a flea market in West Virginia. Some believe that in 1865 they couldn't produce enough light to even consider trying to take a photo inside at night. But this was not the problem. At this point in time they were illuminating entire theaters. The problem with taking photos under this type of lighting produced disastrous results. The flames would move around erratically. In turn, all the shadows on the subject would do the same. The shadows would move so erratically it would wash out all the detail, leaving the subject unrecognizable, as has happened to this photo.
Statement by Robert K. Stone, Lincoln's family physician. While engaged about him, rendering all the aid in my power, I noticed the appearance of a black or purple spot at the internal angle of the right eye. This, occupying the position of the circle of ophthalmic sinus, gradually increased in size, invading the whole orbital periphery until the right eye was surrounded by a zone of the most intense ecchymosis. This gradually increased, the effusion was formed into the subconjunctival cellular tissue of this lately affected eye. The ball of the eye became prominent by slow degrees until the zone around the eye orbit was complete, and then the protrusion reached its greatest point, until the ball seemed to protrude 1 inch at least from its socket. After a short time, when the intensity of the left orbital ecchymosis had reached its intensity, we noticed that the left pupil began to quite slowly dilate, until the dilation of both pupils was equal. Dr. Taft. The left upper eyelid was swollen and dark from effused blood. This was observed a few minutes after his removal from the theater. About 30 minutes after he was placed upon the bed, discoloration from effusion began in the internal canthus of the right eye, which became rapidly discolored and swollen, with great protrusion of the eye. About 11:30 p.m., twitching of the facial muscles of the left side set in and continued some 15 or 20 minutes, and the mouth was drawn slightly to the same side.
Now moving on. Another thing that was never mentioned was Lincoln's bloody nose. It is very difficult to see by just glancing at the photo. But once it is seen, it is easily spotted thereafter. Looking at the left-hand glove in the photo, it doesn't look like much. But this was an important discovery. The glove has a wrinkle that has cast a shadow resembling the number 7. The same wrinkle is found on the actual left-hand glove that Lincoln was wearing the night he was shot. It's residing at the museum. Is this a coincidence? It's highly unlikely. This is a watch and fob believed to be worn by Lincoln the night he was assassinated. But until now there was no evidence to verify this claim. Why the fob was positioned like this is unknown. Maybe to let everyone know that this was Lincoln. But due to blur in the photo, it became a major task identifying it from the things that surround it. The blurring in the photo has caused the L to bleed together. But the A is perfectly visible. And in light of all the other evidence, it's very clear that this is the fob of Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln had 2 moles above his left eye. These moles appeared in a number of the photos taken of him. The 2 moles are also present in this photo. Another thing that has been asked numerous times: where is all the blood? Here are a few of the blood spots encircled on the pillow. The reason the pillow isn't a total mess is his head had just been placed onto the pillow. Some try to compare the pillow in this photo with the bloody pillow in the deathbed photos. But this photo was taken about 8.5 hours before the deathbed photos were. This death photo of Lincoln has two prominent blood spots on it. These two spots are also on the actual pillow that was under Lincoln's head throughout the night. The two spots on the actual pillow were aligned with the two blood spots in the death photo. As the actual pillow was faded in and out on the death photo, it was noted that the pillow proportioned out perfectly in height and width. This isn't the only indicator that this was the pillow under Lincoln's head, but it is the only pillow that was on the deathbed completely saturated by water. All the pillows and pillowcases do not show this type of extreme saturation. But there is a very plausible explanation for this.
Fred Peterson found his father sound asleep in his tailor shop. Soon they were heading home on the wet clay streets, a cold mist enveloping them as they walked. By the time they returned, Secretary of War Edwin M. Stanton had thrown open the death room windows to let in some fresh air. The president's face was cold as stone, and the blackness had spread beyond the eyes to the forehead. That wasn't what threw William Peterson off, though when Peterson's eyes fell on the stinking piles of bloody bandages and leaking mustard plaster, he became unplugged. The heaps of medical refuse loomed large in the narrow hallway. The boarding house owner stormed into the death room and rudely grabbed the stained top pillow out from under the dead president's head, terrifying the Elk brothers. Raising the thick window blinds, he tossed the pillow, possibly still wet with Mr. Lincoln's blood, out onto the fieldstone porchyard 2 stories below. As soon as he came to his senses, Peterson loudly explained that his house was a mess, full of mud and unwashed basins.
Is this story true? Or was it beefed up a bit, so to speak? Looking at the death photo of Lincoln, a large wrinkle is just inches away from his right shoulder. It is standing straight up. This same wrinkle is on the pillow in the deathbed photo. It has fallen over as Lincoln's head was removed from it. This indicates that this exact pillow was under Lincoln's head throughout the night. This also indicates that the pillow wasn't pulled from under Lincoln's head as the story says, simply by the fact it is still on the bed as Julius took these photos and Lincoln is nowhere in sight. In the second deathbed photo, Julius has moved the pillow and flattened out the large wrinkle. And this is how it was discovered that this was the second photo taken. The story did say it was drizzling rain outside. And it is obvious the pillow was thrown out the window. But this was after Julius had taken the second deathbed photo. Another thing it lets us know is that Julius and his brother Henry were still in the room when William Peterson returned home and entered the room. There was a guard placed at the front door to keep people out. But the guard was unaware that Julius was in the room taking photographs because they were already in the house. And as can be seen in these 2 deathbed photos, there are no heaping piles of bloody linen in the hallway. And Stanton is nowhere to be seen. Now, if you would permit, I'd like to draw your attention to this small area at the side of the pillow. This small area tells a story in itself. The 2 arrows are pointing at 2 illuminations. These 2 illuminations are actually caused by a light source reflecting off of the very top of the headboard. The different patterns that the headboard can create can be seen in these 2 photos of the actual deathbed headboard. Here it can be seen what a single light source creates. It illuminates a single string of reflection across the top of the headboard. But in this photo of the actual deathbed, a light source is coming from above and the light is reflecting off of the pillow onto the headboard. The reflection from the pillow creates a double string of reflection. In the death photo of Lincoln, It shows a double illuminated reflection. And this indicates that there was a light source from above and below. Here a cutout from the actual deathbed has been pasted onto the Lincoln photo. And this is positively what made this image in the photo of Lincoln. In this photo, a white semicircle has been added to the area of interest. This area contains a light circle. This light circle was created by someone holding a coal oil lamp near Lincoln's face. This was done so they could illuminate the right side of the face. There was no need to hold a lamp on the left side because there was a natural gas lamp mounted on the wall that was producing a substantial amount of light on that side.